Brace yourself for what might be the most explosive warning of the decade. Lewis Hamilton didn't whisper it, he didn't soften it, he said it plainly. Doing 600 metres of lift and coast on a qualifying lap, that's not racing. This wasn't frustration, this was an indictment. Behind closed doors during the first serious tests of the 2026 machinery, something shifted. The promise was evolution, 50% electrification, sustainable fuels, active aerodynamics. The marketing said the future, but what Hamilton and Max Verstappen discovered on track feels very different. Lower gears where they shouldn't exist, energy deficits dictating racing lines, instability on corner entry, and the most alarming part, drivers are no longer pushing flat out in qualifying, they're managing batteries. For decades, Formula One was about courage at the limit, commitment under braking, full attack on a single lap. Now, under the new 2026 regulations, pure speed may no longer be king. Hamilton's words weren't dramatic, they were controlled, measured, almost surgical, which makes them even more dangerous because when a 7-time world champion calmly suggests the sport is drifting away from racing itself, you have to ask, is 2026 innovation or is it a transformation nobody asked for? Here's what Hamilton confirmed and why it's sending shockwaves through the paddock. Under the 2026 regulations, drivers are being forced to use first and second gear in corners that were previously taken in higher gears with flow and stability. Why? Because they can't recover enough battery energy. With the removal of the MGU-H and the massive increase in MGU-K power output, energy recovery has become brutally sensitive. If you don't harvest enough under braking, you simply don't have the electrical deployment needed down the next straight. So what do drivers do? They artificially spike revs. They downshift deeper than ideal. They sacrifice corner balance just to recharge. Hamilton explained that this isn't about preference, it's survival within the system, and the side effect is dangerous. Those aggressive downshifts into first gear create instability on entry. The step between ratios is larger. The rear snaps, the car reacts unpredictably. Instead of flowing through corners, drivers are manipulating machinery to feed the battery. That's not instinctive racing, that's mechanical negotiation. And when champions start adapting their driving style, not for speed, but for energy bookkeeping, the foundation of Formula One quietly begins to shift. Now comes the moment that stunned even veteran engineers. Hamilton revealed that at certain circuits, particularly those with limited heavy braking zones, drivers may be forced to lift and coast during qualifying laps. Read that again. Not in the race, not for fuel saving, in qualifying. At tracks like Barcelona, where long flowing sections dominate, the lack of aggressive braking means reduced energy recovery, and without sufficient battery recharge, deployment runs out before the lap ends. So drivers are lifting 500, sometimes 600 metres before the apex on a push lap. Qualifying is supposed to be the purest expression of speed, maximum attack, zero compromise, but under these regulations, pure aggression could mean energy collapse before the straight. Hamilton didn't scream, he didn't rage, he simply said, that's not what racing is about. And that sentence carried more weight than any outburst, because if the fastest lap is no longer about commitment, but about calculation, then something fundamental has changed. This isn't strategy, this is structural limitation. And when energy management invades qualifying itself, we're no longer talking about evolution, we're talking about a redefinition of what Formula One actually is. While the FIA presents 2026 as a technological leap forward, the drivers are quietly battling something far less. Glamorous instability. Corner entry has become unpredictable. The combination of lower downforce philosophy, active aerodynamics, and aggressive energy harvesting has altered the balance of the car in ways that even seasoned champions find uncomfortable. Hamilton pointed out that the step between gear ratios is larger. When drivers drop into first gear to maximize regeneration, the rear can snap violently, add a tailwind, add reduced downforce. Suddenly, even experienced hands are fighting the car. turn 10 in Barcelona became a warning sign. Lockups everywhere, rear instability, sliding across the top of the tyres instead of cutting cleanly through the apex. This isn't the controlled aggression fans expect. It's mechanical compromise. And then there's the deeper structural shift, removing the MGU-H while tripling MGU-K power, created a system that depends heavily on braking events to recharge. But not every circuit provides enough of them, which means some tracks will expose the energy imbalance more brutally than others. What was sold as balance between sustainability and performance is beginning to look like a delicate equation with unintended consequences. And that raises the real question. If the car's behaviour changes to satisfy energy logic, is performance still the primary objective? This is where the conversation stops being technical and becomes philosophical. Hamilton and Verstappen rarely align publicly, different eras, different styles, different battles. But on this, they are sending the same signal. If Formula One becomes primarily about energy management, something essential may be slipping away. For decades, the sport has been defined by bravery under braking, commitment through high-speed corners, flat-out qualifying laps that left nothing on the table. Now, drivers may have to think about deployment maps before instinct, battery percentage before attack, lift points before apex commitment. Hamilton didn't frame it as rebellion, he framed it as concern, because the fastest car on a weekend might not win if its energy strategy falters, the boldest lap might collapse if deployment runs dry, and when management overtakes momentum, the DNA of racing subtly shifts. Is that innovation, or is it over-engineering? The FIA wants sustainability, the manufacturers want relevance, the sport wants progress. But progress without balance risks creating something unrecognisable. This isn't nostalgia, it's structural anxiety. If 2026 becomes a championship decided more by software calibration than raw racing instinct, fans may start asking a dangerous question. Are we still watching Formula One? If 2026 becomes what early testing suggests, the battlefield will no longer be just braking zones and DRS. It will be software. Hamilton admitted something crucial. Energy management is going to be key. That sentence changes everything, because now victory may depend on who masters deployment timing, harvesting phases, and control mapping with surgical precision. Drivers won't just race opponents, they'll race algorithms. Engineers will become tacticians of kilowatts. Tiny errors in recovery modelling could cost tenths every lap. A misjudged deployment window could leave a driver defenceless down a straight, and here's the uncomfortable layer. This system rewards discipline over daring. The driver who manages best may beat the driver who attacks hardest. That's not necessarily wrong, but it is different. The paddock knows it. Simulation departments are already becoming central command centres. Deployment strategies are being rehearsed long before race weekend, which means 2026 won't just test bravery, it will test mental bandwidth, cockpit multitasking and strategic restraint. Formula One has always evolved, but this shift feels less like evolution of speed and more like evolution of control. And when control becomes the deciding factor, spectacle inevitably changes. Here's the dilemma. The FIA wants a greener, more sustainable future. Manufacturers want road relevance. Electrification is no longer optional. It's political, commercial and strategic. On paper, 2026 makes sense, but Formula One has never survived on logic alone. It survives on emotion, on that one qualifying lap where nothing is saved, on the late-braking dive that defies calculation, on the feeling that the fastest driver on the limit wins. If fans begin to see drivers lifting on push laps, if overtakes depend more on battery percentage than bravery, if instability replaces flow, the spectacle changes, not instantly, not dramatically, but gradually. And that's the danger. Hamilton's warning wasn't about resisting change, it was about protecting the core of competition. When two dominant champions question the direction of the sport, the FIA must listen carefully, because innovation without sporting integrity risks alienating the very audience the sport depends on. 2026 could redefine Formula One for a new generation, or it could trigger the biggest identity crisis the championship has faced in decades. The next chapter hasn't been written yet, so now we arrive at the moment that matters most. Not what the FIA says, not what the manufacturers promote, not what the simulations predict, but what you believe Formula One should be. Hamilton didn't shout, he didn't protest publicly, he simply stated a reality that few expected to hear. If we're lifting and coasting in qualifying, that's not racing. That sentence is heavier than it sounds because it forces a confrontation. Is Formula One entering a bold new era of intelligent, electrified performance, or are we slowly trading instinct for instrumentation? Now, progress is inevitable. Technology will always evolve, but the soul of a sport is fragile. Once altered, it rarely returns to its original form. 2026 isn't just a regulation shift, it's a philosophical turning point. So now the question shifts to you. Do you believe Hamilton is right? Is the FIA pushing innovation too far? Or is this simply the next necessary step in F1's evolution? Drop your verdict in the comments, and if you believe the essence of racing must be protected, make your voice heard, because the future of Formula One is being written now.